7.8 million more than Miami. That in itself boggles my mind. Now, it isn't, when I say we, this was the Gator Collective, which does not exist anymore. They offered him this amount of money, and then it came time to pony up, and they didn't have it, nor did the people who are boosters who give money to these collectives and things like this. They thought, they were outraged, I think, because they couldn't come anywhere close to what they were asking. So they tried to renegotiate. And in the renegotiation, the whole thing fell apart. The kid who's supposed to be the gem of the 2023 recruiting class said, I want a divorce, and he got one. He and his family. And they went to Arizona State, which gave them exactly zero in NIL money, leaving Florida in the lurch. And the question is now, how many people up the administration level knew what was going on? Was Billy Napier directly involved in this negotiation? And then we have the NCAA on top of it, which, as you know, has this nasty habit of making things up as they go along. You've got a notice of investigation. And in the case of the NCAA, that almost always means we already have the goods on you, but we're giving you this much time to come up with excuses and evidence and whatever like that may lessen your sentence in the end. And this is where we are with this. Florida has admitted they are under investigation, and the only thing that I can conclude is since it happened in June, they've had 6 months of gathering evidence, and the NCAA has yet to send them what's called, the next step is called the notice of allegations, which says, we're going to charge you with this, 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 and this. And that's the next step of the way. Florida hasn't gotten that. The question now is, how much will the NCAA, will they go for the throat? In other words, Shane, we don't know that. And can you trust them?
Yeah, and what's crazy about this whole thing, first of all, it's absolutely ridiculous and stupid whoever offered this kind of money to this kid. I don't think any of the coaches, this is my personal opinion, I know nothing about it. I don't think the coaches had anything to do with this. I think this was people that were in the collective trying to one up another school and try to say, we got this kind of money. Because I have a hard time believing any college coach in America would offer a kid that kind of money. That's just stupidity. So we have a text on the Titan Mark text line for you, Franz. He says, with these allegations, is there any chance this could be where Billy Napier is fired with cause?
Well, this is where we get into that gray area of the NCAA, which is to say that no money exchanged hands. So there was no dirty deed, let's say. There is no proof of a dirty deed. The question is, can the NCAA then say, well, we don't have to have money changing hands. All we have to have is the fact that you approved of it. Did Billy Napier know about it? Did he approve of it? If the NCAA can prove that Billy Napier was directly involved, then you have cause, and the University of Florida could fire him. Unless, of course, the University of Florida does what Michigan has done, which is take the Tammy Wynette defense, which is stand by your man. And Michigan's got Jim Harbaugh being investigated already for a recruiting violation, in which he bought some recruits hamburgers who had been to his camp, and he came in and he just said, I'll pick up that tab. And the NCAA says he lied about it. He says he didn't even remember it at first, and when he did, whatever. And then there's the sign stealing thing, which everybody, as you know, already does. And the only difference is the NCAA went after him and caught him, and they got him. And they probably were a little more sophisticated in how they went about it. So does Florida take the Tammy Wynette defense? Stand by your man? Do they throw Billy Napier under the bus? Those seem to be the questions. Or let the last and most important is, did Billy Napier not know anything? Because if he didn't know anything, that's the best defense of all.
But here's the thing. This is what I still don't understand about this. Whether it was 13 million or 1 million or $300,000, it never happened. And the university, the athletic department has nothing to do with this, right? Because it's a whole separate entity. So, whether a coach said, yeah, hey, if y'all want to pay that kid that kind of money, go ahead and do it. He has no involvement in it, from what I understand. But I don't know. There really aren't any rules now, and they're trying to come after this. This is just ridiculous, in my opinion. Danny on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, has he comment here, says, do you think this could be the reason why Scott Strickland is not highlighting the NIL?
Well, I think that Scott Strickland is kind of caught between the proverbial rock and a hard place, in that Florida needs NIL money. You've got to have it to compete these days. As much as stupid as it may seem, now if I'm going to spend NIL money, then I'm going to spend it on somebody that's a proven commodity. If I want to spend NIL money on a quarterback, I'm going to go get me a quarterback that's worth however much money. But high school kids, Shane, this is the thing. It's different than when you were there. When you came up and you were a hotsy-totsy quarterback out of Pascagoula High School, led Pascagoula. Are they the Panthers? I can't remember.
They are the Panthers.
See, I'm an old Mississippi guy. 3 years of exile in the state myself, and still, if you go out at 9 o'clock tonight and look up in the sky, you can see that home run Donnie Davis hit to beat Macomb in the state playoffs. Good at seventh inning, and he hit a 3-run homer, and it's in orbit right now. But when you came out of Pascagoula High School, you were a hotsy-totsy quarterback. You had Kes McCorvey that you threw to. You had Terrell Buckley on your ball club. Great Pascagoula team. But you came to Florida for opportunity to play. You wanted to play quarterback. You liked the stadium. You liked the setup. You liked Galen Hall. That's why you came here. Now, in your day, had there been money on the table, would that have swayed you? That's my question for you. I don't know, because I don't know inside the head of Shane Matthews, who could figure out Spurrier's offense, in a spring.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was never offered anything, never got a dollar while I was here. Did I think about transferring if they had the transfer portal? Yeah, because I didn't play my first 2 years, and I wanted to transfer back to Ole Miss where my dad played and my mom was a cheerleader, but they wouldn't allow it. But the world has changed, and it's all about money. Doesn't matter about playing time as much as it does money. I'm telling you that. So Barone has a question. What about Miami? Why are they not being investigated in this whole deal?
Well, Miami is under investigation as far as I know, because John Ruiz, who's the gazillionaire who has been funding all these NIL deals, apparently has missed payments with people, and they're unhappy about it. And apparently he's broke. Supposed to have billions, but apparently he is broke. That's at least one of the allegations about him. And so Miami's there. Matt Hayes, who I think is one of the best connected writers nationally, writing for Saturday Down South, says that Florida is one of many schools being investigated for NIL, which tells me that the NCAA is looking at this as a chance to act like they are in control, and they're not, Shane. They are out of control as it is, and they're just trying to flex their muscles and give the appearance. What we have is an organization which is bound by its own stupidity. I mean, they keep losing court cases, and there are court cases going on right now that are going to further knock the legs out of the NCAA. My belief is that these cases, since there are no rules, there are guidelines. That's all they've got. Guidelines are like you're driving down a road and you got that line down one side of it, that line down the other, and you got the dotted line down the middle. Those are guidelines telling you keep in here. They're not there. That's not the rule. You can go outside there. You can pass on the other side, whatever like that. But those are your guidelines. There are no rules here with the NCAA, just guidelines. And this is the thing that's so frustrating about it, Shane, is that they're acting on a situation where there are no rules. They're just going after people based on guidelines, and they're kind of making it up as they go along. As we learned in 1984, which was before your time here, you were, 13 years old in 1984? Maybe?
I was 14.
Okay. That was the year that Florida got busted over Charlie Pell. And the NCAA wanted Charlie Pell. He was recruiting at such a high level. This was an NFL team in 1984, in 1985 as well, and 83. The 83 Auburn, Florida game, 57 guys who played in that game went on to play at least 1 year in the NFL. Out of that, I think 50 of them played at least 2 years in the NFL. One of the most future professional players to ever play in an NCAA game, as far as we know, was that one. And Charlie had built a program that was going to be winning national SEC and national championships. It's interesting that same time, Florida State with Bobby Bowden. Bobby didn't cheat. Now we know better than that, don't we? Bobby Bowden wouldn't cheat. Yes, he would. And he did. But Tennessee, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Georgia, good old Herschel Walker. Turns out the boy was bought and sold. And as I have understood from people who know, if there had been such a thing as a cell phone in 1980, he would have never gone to Georgia. He'd have gone to Southern Cal, because at the time the decision was made and John Robinson had told the Walkers, don't make a move till you've talked to me. He was on the course at Riviera Country Club, about the 12th green, as I understand it, and there was no way to get in touch with him. And the Walkers had set a deadline, and Georgia said, X dollars or else, and he took the X.
Interesting. 1966 HBC beer is available at Spurs, Gridiron Grill, Gator Games in the O-Dome, and select retail outlets. Crisp American Lager, that's 1966 HBC beer. Speaking with Iron Duke, Franz Beard here on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements. Text on the Titan More text line. Johnny says, someone apparently dropped the ball. 13 million? Are you kidding me? Reports are that Ohio State just spent $13 million on their entire team in their collective.
I can believe $13 million for a team. And here's what we're going to have to get to, Shane. We're going to have to get to a point where, first and foremost, the Division I schools have, at least for football, have to secede from the NCAA and say, you are no longer in charge. Set up their own rules, set up their own commissioner, and each conference is going to have to set, for all practical purposes, a salary cap. And here's what I believe: they're going to have to say, okay, this is the SEC, and we got 85 players on scholarship at now 16 schools. You are allowed to spend $100,000 a player. Now, it sounds like a lot, but that's $8.5 million, and they're going to be making $100 million on their media deal in 2 years. Well, 8.5 million sounds like a lot until you put it up against 100 million. It's still just a small slice of the pie, so to speak. And this is what it's going to take. It's going to take this where every kid gets the same amount of money. And it's the only way to take the dirt out of it. Now, people are still going to try to cheat. You know
Mhm.
that as well as I do. But for the most part, it's going to take the cheating out of it. Because if I am Billy Bob Beasley, this fine football player out of Macomb, Mississippi, a Tiger, if I am the quarterback for the Macomb Tigers, and all of a sudden it's the same thing. All they can offer me is that $100,000 at every SEC school, and I want to play in the SEC, then that eliminates a certain amount of the cheating that's going to take place. The advantage is going to have to be in the coaching, the atmosphere, etc., like that. You came to Florida because you thought Florida had the best coaching for you at the time, the best atmosphere to play in. And it turned out for you, it ended up that way because from 1990, 91, and 92, quite frankly, you were as good a quarterback as there was anywhere in this entire country. I mean, they gave in 91, they gave Gino Torretta was it 91 or was it 92?
Desmond it was Desmond and Gino in 92.
Well, all I can say is Gino Torretta deserved the high, he's a nice enough guy. I mean, but
He was a
God,
good dude.
wore a dark suit with white socks to the on the Heisman podium. I mean, give me a break. I mean, uh, at least have a little bit of a sense of fashion when you're up there. But he did not have the year that you had. In 91, you were the best quarterback in the country. Bar none, you were the best quarterback in the country. I'm not trying to fluff your feathers. I'm just telling you the way it was. You were the best quarterback in the country. And I believe to this day that if not for Florida laying an egg in the Carrier Dome, you win the Heisman Trophy. I believe that. I
Yeah,
think you
my junior year was by far my best, no question about that. We got a text on the Titan Anymore text line from an anonymous texter says, I believe the lack of rules and regulations regarding NIL will be the ultimate defense in any case against any university by the NCAA. Probably so.
I would agree.
Yeah, we got a couple more texts here, and then we're going to move on to some recruiting out of the portal. This is from Sharon in Naples. She says, Franz, do you think Scott Strickland will be fired before Billy Napier?
No, I don't. I think, folks, I want to tell you what. Scott Strickland came here and got us a long range plan, which was not in existence when he came here. He has built as fine a ball yard as you're going to see for the baseball team. He's upgrading everything, and he is raising the funds to do it. And if you want to go back to the facilities the way they were before we had the HEV and all the other places like that we have that have improved what we're doing, if you want to go back to a point where not every athlete, believe it or not, Shane, whether a scholarship or non-scholarship, if you are on the team, even if you are a manager, you get 3 meals a day at the at the HEV, and that is something that my goodness, yeah. And you want to talk about an advantage that gives, like our baseball team. You only have 11.8 scholarships for baseball. You got 27 kids who can have scholarship money on your roster. And if all of a sudden the meals are taken care of, that's scholarship money that you don't have to spend. What a difference that makes. And that's all because of Scott Strickland. He's not going anywhere, folks.
The athlete in today's world has it made. I mean, it's crazy the amount of amenities that they have, and not only that, they're making a ton of money. All right. Before we jump into the recruiting, Todd has a question here on the Titan Mart text line. Franz, are you in favor of renovating the swamp?
I think there are things that have to be done to the swamp. I would like to see every seat a chair back. I think that would go a long way and help things. Now, I realize that that makes people who may be carrying an extra, an extra pound or two, it may make them difficult to plop their rear end into the seat. But quite frankly, I have been in the swamp for ball games when the person next to me uh weighed about 300 something pounds and really took up two seats. And I'm sitting there like this because on the other side of me is somebody who may also need to be on the slim fast plan and isn't, and I've been squeezed out like that. And having the chair backs, I think, would be good. I think there's ways to increase the entire game day experience here. And it may end up reducing the capacity by 2 or 3,000. But can you tell me if 85,000 sounds any less intimidating than 88? I mean, you played there when it was like 72,000, and it got really loud at 72, didn't it?
Yeah, I think decreasing the capacity is not going to affect the noise level at all. It is very uncomfortable sitting in those seats. There's no question about that. So we'll see what they decide to do. I don't know if it's in concrete yet or what, or when that's supposed to start. Franz, over the weekend, Gators pick up two big time recruiting. Well, real quick, Natasha says Jan Hall was amazing. Yeah, Jan Hall. Look, I've talked about this multiple times. Jan Hall was a dump, but it was so convenient. Every male athlete lived together, ate together, and that's things that you'll remember the rest of your lives. Kids nowadays don't get to experience that, and that's a shame. So I was talking about in the portal, we picked up Jameer Grimsley from Bama, a corner, and then the big defensive lineman from Texas. What do you know about these guys, Franz?
Okay, first off, let's go with Jameer Grimsley. He's out of Tampa Catholic. What's interesting, he signed with Alabama, but Alabama had a coaching change, which meant that everybody by the NCAA decree becomes a free agent if they wish to be. And now what's interesting is here's a kid that were opposing of him like almost in a Heisman pose, only wearing a Nick Saban hat like he did in an Alabama uniform in his recruiting hype photos. And yet now he's saying that Florida was his dream school. So what does that tell us? That tells us that Alabama outbid everybody originally. And now that there's a new coach there, maybe Alabama is saying all deals are off. So he's come to Florida where anyway, he is a stud. He's 6'2". He's 190 pounds. He's a big physical corner who runs about a 4.4. And with him now, Florida has 8 scholarship cornerbacks. I think they need 10, but right now the numbers are we've got 95 on scholarship. We really and truly need more. We need 2 more corners. We need 2 more safeties. They may get a safety out of Asa Turner, who played at Washington for Will Harris in 2021 when they only gave up 145 yards a game passing. That was one serious secondary at that time. Opponents averaged 5.4 yards per pass attempt, which, as you know, is the single most important offensive stat there is, other than that and yards per carry. So he's a big physical corner who's got speed. He will play immediately. Delontre Robinson is out of Orlando Jones. He's coached by a guy named Eli Williams, who's people may remember that name. He was reasonably good in his day, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Ran that wheel route as well as anybody not named Eric Rhett in history of the University of Florida as far as running backs go. But He's from Orlando Jones. He's 6'4", he's 320. He's a nose tackle who can run. And this is he's got to be the real future there. Chris McClellan left Florida, wound up, I believe, at Tulsa. Maybe it was Oklahoma or Missouri or someplace like that. I can't remember. They all scatter like the wind. But they lost Chris McClellan, and Chris McClellan was going to back up big guy in the middle, Cameron Johnson. This kid has the size to be there immediately. I think Florida's really upgraded the defense, and I give Billy Napier credit for that. Shane, here's the thing that I looked at. Ron Roberts, who's the new co-defensive coordinator, he came to Auburn and he cut a touchdown a game off what they gave up the year before. And with that, Auburn ends up a team that everybody thought was going to finish down in the dumps in the SEC. They end up going to a bowl game and probably should have won 8 ball games if the offense had done its part. But he cut a touchdown off. You come to Florida and you look at the last 2 years. If you cut a touchdown off in the last 2 years, just in the losses that Florida's had, and the Gators are 18-7 instead of 11-14. So if Ron Roberts can, with these new additions like Jameer Grimsley, Delontre Robinson, Joey Slackman, who is coming in there to play on the defensive line, et cetera, like that. If they can get these guys to take a touchdown a game off, they're scoring enough points. I know people want to see fun and gun. They want to see you light up Okie State for 50 without, they want to see stuff like that. But, if you win 28-14, you still win. They don't have a category on the one loss record that says, well, you get extra because you won this many games by 30, and we taken off because you only won by 14 here. It's still all about winning and losing, and they've scored enough points to be 18-7. What they haven't done is stopped enough people, and you got to get off the field. So I think they're doing a good job of addressing these needs. And I think bringing in Ron Roberts is going to be a big help, because this is a guy that he was Austin Armstrong's mentor defensively. And if they can get all the coaches on the same page, which they weren't the last 2 years, I think it would help a lot.
Yep. Camp on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon Losses. I know it's probably best to decrease the seating, but I want to have one of the largest, not the largest facility in the SEC, not smaller. Well, as of today, these teams, I know for a fact, have bigger stadiums than we do. Tennessee, Alabama, A&M, Georgia, Auburn, and LSU. And then you throw in Texas and OU. So we're kind of in the middle of the pack, the upper part of the league, but there's at least 5 to 6 teams that already have bigger facilities than we do. Franz, we got a text here on the Titan More text line from Larry in Atlanta. He wants to know, are any moves going to be made on the offensive staff, or are they set?
I think they're set. I really do. If they're going to make a change, it will be after February 7th. February 7th is signing day, okay? 16 days away from today. If they are going to make a change, that's when they would do it. And it would be, instead of having 2 offensive line coaches, it will mean having only one, because that's the only way you can do it. You got a tight ends coach, Russ Callaway. You have Billy Gonzalez, who I think it made such a difference coaching the wide receivers. I think Florida's wide receiver route running last year was impeccable. And you had a guy who could get the ball into the windows that they could create. Two offensive line coaches, and you could say that, judging by the results they had, that they only needed one, because they lost a full yard, actually 1.28 yards per carry last year. They gave up 39 sacks as opposed to, I think, 17 the year before. So you had a real problem with the O-line. Question's going to be, can the O-line improve? But you got a running backs coach, you got a quarterbacks coach who also is the head coach, and he's the offensive coordinator. I don't see room to add one unless you were to decrease one of the offensive line coaches, and I think they're happy with two. So I think it's status quo there, and I think the changes have been made. They've been made on the defensive side, and we got 3 new coaches there, and I hope that makes a difference there because that's where I believe they got to make the improvement.
Radware is a family-owned business that prides itself in excellent customer service while providing quality and affordable promotional products and customized apparel. A few more minutes here with Franz Beard on the Titan R hotline, courtesy of Duffield Home Improvements. Text on the Titan R text line. Franz, how many offensive and defensive linemen do we currently have, and how many more do we need?
All right. Offensive linemen, right now, we've got 16. I think that that's a bare minimum that you have to have. I think people would really prefer to have about 18 to 20. Alabama's been carrying 20 for years. Georgia carries anywhere from 18 to 20, but the minimum they have is 18. And I think 18 is a really good number. You got to have 5 that you know in your top rotation, and you got to have 5 capable backups. And it's a developmental position. I think this is the part that people have problems understanding. Urban Meyer used to say that the closer you get to the football, the more difficult it is to play when you play early. The more development you have to have. And I tend to agree with that. You don't see freshman defensive linemen for the most part, or freshman offensive linemen. Over on the defensive side, they have 12 or 13 defensive linemen per se. And then you throw in the edge guys, and I don't know, Shane, I have a hard time distinguishing between, okay, are you a linebacker? Are you a defensive end? Do you some of these guys, they say edge, are hand in the dirt kind of guys, but they play outside. Anyway, between the two of them, they got 28. All right. So those are the numbers there. And that is your linebackers, your edge guys, and your pure defensive linemen. But between those two positions, that's 46 of the 85 scholarships.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Camp had a question here. Any chance we pick up another experienced wide receiver out of the portal? Someone with above average speed, route running, kind of like Pearsall. They got the kid from Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, Shamir DK, and he's really good. I can tell you right now, Billy Gonzalez loves these freshmen coming in. Florida's going to have the ability to go vertical on every single play, and they've not had that. Do they need another experienced wide receiver? Yes, and they are after one. I believe they're going to end up getting this kid out of Division II, but he's got to finish. He's got to finish school. He can't get into school right now. The SEC is interesting about transfers coming in that they have to have had a certain math course, and as I understand it, he's getting his math course this spring, and they'll get him. But he and anybody who would discount some of these guys who are Division II guys, don't do it. These guys coming from the route running is route running. Catching the ball is catching the ball. I gotta hand it to Lane. Lane picked up Lane last year got Trey Harris, who came in from Louisiana Tech, who's a stud. And this year he gets Juice Wells, who spent the year injured. But if you look at what he had the year before at South Carolina, this is a 1,000-yard receiver. So you pick up some big time guys there. Alabama just picked up one of those receivers from Washington, Jeremy Bernard. There are receivers out there, and you got to just be careful. You got to get a kid that can do what you want to do. And you got to get a kid that you can afford, because it's all about buying them now.
That's the key is, there's plenty of them out there, but can you afford to get them on campus and sign on the dotted line? Franz, before we get you out of here, I saved this text from Peter in Detroit. on purpose because I know it may be tough for you to pick out here. He wants to know, Franz, you've been covering the Gators for a long time. Who is the best player for the Gators that you have seen in football, baseball, and basketball?
Okay. Well, in football, it's going to boggle people's minds when I say this. Stephen Orr Spurrier. And I say that because he played in an era when basically he was his own off. He and Fred Pankos got together and they draw up plays in the dirt on the sideline. I mean, it was kind of like what he did when he was coaching you, Shane.
Mhm.
Well, Shane, why don't you go up there and have this sport? He
Yeah.
he could do it. Stephen Orr Spurrier, but I'll tell you, I have a soft spot in my heart for Wilbur Marshall. Wilbur Marshall was a game changer, was an absolute terror. And when it comes to football, I'd put those two guys on a pedestal right there. Basketball, the best basketball player we've had at Florida. I'd have to say the Ophers and plus Lane plus Lee Humphrey. Those five guys together were just absolutely unbelievable. But the guy that statistically the best player of all time at Florida is a guy named Neil Walk, the late Neil Walk, who was a tremendous friend of mine. 6'11", averaged 18.7 rebounds for his career at Florida. And the best baseball player that's come through Florida, I'll tell you what, it's hard to argue against the kid that just we had here last year, Wyatt Langford. Really, really hard to argue against him. I know that there's going to be a lot of talk about a lot of different guys who've actually played in the majors. He's never played had an at-bat in the majors, but my gosh, Wyatt Langford was just so good. And to think of, he's almost a Shane Matthews story, because as a freshman, he was the bullpen catcher and he was kind of a chubby guy. And when and you were an afterthought, and then Spurrier comes along, and in one spring, you go from the sixth string quarterback to the number one. Everybody thought it would be Kyle Morris or Brian Fox would be the starting quarterback when spring football started. Y'all held the spring game in Jacksonville that year. And along comes this skinny guy from Pascagoula who all of a sudden he knows the offense and the other guys didn't. Kyle Morris, somebody told me Kyle weighs about 300 pounds now. Is that true?
He did. He's been battling cancer for probably the last 6 or 7 years, and he probably weighs 185. So he's a very close friend of mine, and he's battling still somehow, some way.
Well, my prayers are for him, but I had heard that he gotten really big, and
Yeah.
he threw sidearm, if I remember correctly. I mean, the ball came out from down here and not from up here, and that was one of the reasons that I think you overtook him immediately, was because you threw the ball over here, and Spurrier found it very, very easy to get you to throw the ball from up here and throw it coming out of your ear. And I've always thought that was one of the big advantages that you had, was you already had the good release. But Wyatt Langford was the bullpen catcher, and next thing you know, he becomes an absolute stud. And this year proved it. He had a great sophomore year, and then this past year as a junior just lit it up. And I believe he's headed for a long and prosperous Major League Baseball career because he doesn't swing at bad pitches.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't, like not too long from now, they'll all be going to training camp, spring training, and hopefully he gets
about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, that close. Hopefully he gets an opportunity to make it to the big leagues. I think he will as well. Franz, great stuff as always, man. Let everybody know how they can read your articles.
GatorbaitMedia.com. You can find everything I write there, and that's I write basically 6 days a week, and sometimes I write 7, but I do occasionally sleep, and it's which is good. Unlike you, Shane, I can't go 24 hours a day.
Well, I don't do that either. One last text before we get you out of here from Bobby. He wants to know, Franz, what record do you think the Gators have to have in league play to make the NCAA tournament? He's referring to basketball.
I think Florida has got to go 9-9 in the SEC, and I think that's going to be. I think every team that breaks even. I think the SEC is so tough this year that you've got an upper tier, Shane. You've got Kentucky, Tennessee, and Auburn, and they are the 3 best teams in the league, and it shows in the AP ranking. They're in the top 8, all 3 of them right now. Then you have another tier of teams, and I think out of that tier of teams, 5 or 6 more will make it. I think we'll end up with 8 or 9 teams. But here's the thing: if you go 9-9 in the SEC, which means you're going to have to steal a game on the road, you're going to have to defend your home court, and then you're going to have to win one on the road. Florida's already lost one on the home court to Kentucky. They made it back with Missouri. They've still got to steal another win on the road, I believe, to go 9-9. But I think that's what it's going to take. And I got to tell you what, I will say 2 things. One of them is Kentucky, I think, is a Final Four team with the big 7'2" kid, Ivicevic. I got to tell you what, I don't know if you saw the highlights of what he did. He's driving down the lane, 7'2" now, handling the ball like a guard, and then makes a perfect behind the back pass into the corner to Antonio Reeves, who nails a 3 from there. You give Kentucky and Calipari a guy like that, and they've already got the best freshman in the league, Reed Shepherd.
Yeah.
They're going to be really good. Tennessee's got Dalton Connect, who he's had 5 consecutive games when he scored 25 or more points. He had 39 against Florida, and I think that was all in the first 8 minutes of the game, it seemed. But in reality, I think you got the 3 teams at the top, and they're kind of elite. And then I think you're going to have a scramble to get 5 or 6. This is why tomorrow night is so important, because it is a quad 1 win if they beat Mississippi State. And I think you can beat Mississippi State here. I don't think the Gators could beat Mississippi State at the Hump. The Hump is a tough place to play. Florida already has had a problem at the Pavilion at Ole Miss, but Ole Miss is 0-3 on the road. So this is what I'm saying about the SEC. Ole Miss is Ole Miss is just tough as hell to beat at home. They go on the road, and as some people would call the pussy effect, and they become they become less than what they were at home. So Auburn right now is the only undefeated team in the league, and they're not going to finish undefeated in the league, but they've got a great home court. Rupp's the best home court in all of college basketball. Tennessee's also got a great home court, and it's going to be hard for them to lose at home for all 3 of them.
I agree. Franz, good stuff as always. He's the Iron Duke. We appreciate his time, and we'll talk to you soon, bud. Have a great weekend.
Take care, Shane. Bye-bye.
That's Franz Beard joins us on the Titan More Hotline. Take a quick time out, get back, answer some of your questions. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. QC Kinetics, Live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Campus USA, put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, watch. Duffield Home Improvements for your window, siding, and roofing needs. Radware, your local provider of promotional products, uniforms, and apparel. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Radware, F45, Quality Plumbing. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Silverback Concrete's a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it, we stand by it. Richard says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, he saw the HBC and Jerry, his wife, at the girls' game last night. He was constantly yawning, but at least they were there supporting the team. Yeah, Coach loves to go watch other games on campus. He's a big supporter of all the sports. Definitely was when he was a coach here, for sure. This Day in Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. On this day, in 2000, you had both the AFC and the NFC championship games. At Alltel Stadium in Jacksonville, the Titans beat the Jags 33-14. And at the Trans World Dome in St. Louis, the Rams beat the Bucks 11-6. And then the Rams go on to beat the Titans in the Super Bowl. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Tonight, SEC basketball, you got Kentucky at Carolina. Folks, if you have not watched the Kentucky Wildcats since Big Z, well, he's only been eligible for one game, the big 7'2" guy. This team is unbelievable. So Kentucky at Carolina, Missouri at A&M tonight, and there's a ton of games tomorrow. A huge one in the O'Connell Center, Gators and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Had a couple other Facebooks I need to get to. Sandra wants to know on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel, will we get a special teams coach? I've not heard anything. As Franz mentioned, I think it's after February 7th is National Signing Day. There could be some changes. I don't know if there will be. Again, like I've said multiple times, there's a special teams coordinator, but your entire staff is part of that. And I think everybody needs to do their role better. Because it's not just the special teams coach. It's all the assistant coaches are involved. Andy says, Shane, did you see that Osiris Torrance was the only Bills player to play every snap this season? We really underappreciated when he was. Yeah, he's a heck of a player, man. It's still amazing. Well, he's not. He dropped to the second round, I believe, because of his size or maybe his wingspan. I mean, that's what the NFL does. But, boy, is he a warrior. He may be the only player that played every snap in the NFL. That's hard to do, as physical as that league is. But yeah, he's a heck of a player. The Bills did really well. The Bills need to get they need to add a couple of wide receivers, as Mike Morgan said the other day, at least a stud wide out. And then they got to figure out a way to stay healthy on defense. But Josh Allen is phenomenal, fun to watch play for sure. Tomorrow's program will have JC. We got a couple other people that trying to get to come break down the Mississippi State basketball game, waiting for them to respond. But in the meantime, Reeves Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. We appreciate Franz Beard, the Iron Duke, for joining us today, giving us his thoughts on these allegations and all this nonsense. Have a great day, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.